We have specialized cells in the back of our eyes that allows us to see the color spectrum. But unfortunately, there's a percentage of the population that, for reasons scientists still don't have a clear understanding why, cannot see certain colors. Today's guest, Tom Bathgate, also known as the ColourBlind Quilter, was born with a red-green color deficiency. And he has developed some strategies on how to choose color palettes that are colorblind friendly. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here's my interview with the ColourBlind Quilter. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being on the show. You're coming to us from Scotland, but are you in Edinburgh or Glasgow? Forget.
Just outside of Edinburgh, so about 10 miles, so right down at the sea beside the Forth Rail Bridge. So it's lovely and sunny today for the first time this year, probably.
And is quilting big in Scotland?
Yes, it is. It's bigger than I thought it was. I joined my local guild recently, January this year, and there was a long waiting list of people to get in, so I was very lucky to get a space. And the community is so much bigger than I had actually realised. So there's people all across Scotland, and there's long armours across Scotland as well, which are popping up. So I'm in a guild of 35 people for just Edinburgh, and I think there's at least another 10, 15 guilds across Scotland. So it's really, really picking up popularity, especially during pandemic. People have taken to it as a hobby and gifting to others and stuff. So it's amazing.
So your guild is limited to 35 people?
Yeah, so because of the venue that they're in and the constitution that governs them, they had a limit on it. So they had a very long waiting list. So I tried to join last year, last August, and they were told, you're on the list, don't know when it'll be. And then suddenly January's like, oh, we have a space for you. So I think I'm their first male member in their 14-year history. So it's really nice and lovely to be with a group of people that are all doing the same thing, and they're all amazing quilters. So I feel like I have this amazing pool of people that I can kind of learn and draw from. So, and I don't think I would have done it if it hadn't been for your recommendations in one of your videos to seek out your local guild. So I guess I have you to thank for that.
Well, it was a game changer for me. Like just walking into a room and everybody likes to do exactly the same thing. And as you say, they're just a wealth of information. So expert skills, everything. And yeah, I found my tribe. And it's that worry that you're not good enough. I think that holds a lot of people back, and you just have to just jump in there and realize it's good for everybody. So how did you come to quilting?
I had my first experience of quilting when I was 10, and primary school in Scotland, we would do like sewing classes. So it's like the little canvas, and you would do all the different embroidery threads. And then those that finished first got to make like a patchwork quilt, a gym bag. So I was finished first and got to go through this big, massive mountain of scraps and make this kind of, little gym bag for my gym kit. And really, really enjoyed it. So after that, with my grandma, I used to sew every Saturday with her. We would go to the fabric shop and get embroidery threads and canvases and stuff like that. And just really enjoyed it. And then I think 2009 was when I properly kind of started really quilting as an adult and getting into it. And it was because the flat that I lived in was 120 years old, so drafty, cold windows, and I wanted to make some blankets for winter, kind of cozy up on the sofa, and I had been crocheting for a wee while, but I found it really difficult on my hands, because I worked on a computer like 8-10 hours a day. I used to get cramp in my fingers from sitting holding the crochet hook. So I went looking for other ways to make blankets and found Missouri Star Quilt Company, Jenny's tutorials. I think they had only been on YouTube for a very short amount of time. So I kind of binge watched them, was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And ordered materials from the local fabric shop, didn't have a clue what I was doing, just bought stuff. And I actually sat down on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock thinking I could make a blanket in like an hour, as you do. And sat down with a pair of scissors and a plank of wood as a ruler, and chopped up these fat quarters with no idea. So, straight lines and all that. And it was a bit of a mess. But, I loved it. I thoroughly loved it. I think I stayed up till like 3 a.m. doing it. And that was kind of when my love affair with quilting was born. And so I did it on and off until 2018, and then really got into like, everyday quilting, serious, heavy duty stuff.
So you have the challenge that you are colorblind. When did you
Yeah.
discover that you were colorblind?
And so I first found out in primary one, so that's 5 years old for me, and they do these little dot tests, and I can't remember the name of them and the man that invented them, but they basically take you and they give you these tests and they determine whether you're colorblind or not. So I knew from a young age that I was colorblind, 5 years old, but I don't think it fully kind of understood it, and I don't think it kind of hit me until I got to high school, like when we were in a physics class and it was electric, wiring plugs and circuitry, and I wasn't allowed to do it because I was colorblind. In case I blew the school up. So I had to sit and watch, and it wasn't really until high school that I started to feel like it kind of held me back. At back that time, I mean, this is like going back 20 years. There were still certain careers you weren't allowed to do when you were colorblind. So and thankfully a lot of that's changed these days. So it was difficult growing up with it, and from the point of view of feeling like you had these limitations placed on you by society. You can't do this, you can't do that, or going out with your friends and putting on a certain outfit, thinking it looks great, and they're like, no, what are you? No, go home, change. Not great when you're a teenager going out.
So there's several different types of color blindness. What colors can you not see?
So I have what's known as proton color blindness. So that's to do with the L cones in your eyes, which is long wavelength lights. So that's the reds. So it's also known as red-green color blindness. Or color vision deficiency, as people have started calling it, which I actually prefer as a term. I know color blindness is very popular, but color vision deficiency feels more descriptive of what it actually is. I spent years with people saying, "Oh, do you see in black and white? Can you not see colors?" Because they just assumed that blindness meant you were blind to colors. So my main problem is that my eyes don't see enough red light; they see too much green light. So when I look at red, I see green, and vice versa. Um, but any colors that then start to include these colors can be confusing. So blue and purple, wrong way round. You can often get them confused because of the red and the purple can't see it. It's just see the blue. But interestingly, when I was 17, I started to discover colors like light grays and light blues, like sky blues, pale blues. I would very often get those confused, or pinks and grays. So I remember going on holiday with my friends when we just turned 18, first holiday abroad without our parents, and then bought what I thought was the most amazing, like short sleeve grey summer shirt, and took it home. I was like, that's bright pink. I was like, oh, okay. So mean, you can kind of have problems with any color across the spectrum. It really depends on the kind of contrast, the saturation of the color, what it's next to, the lighting conditions that you're in as well. If you're in darker lighting conditions, I can very often pick up the completely wrong color, and then you see it in the daylight, you're like, oh yeah, that's completely obvious. Other challenges from colorblind, not just from quilting, is going to the supermarket trying to buy ripe bananas. I've come home with some cracking green bananas. My partner's like, what did you buy them for? They're green. They'll be ready in weeks. And oh, they look yellow to me under the fluorescent lighting. Or picking clothes, we've already discussed. Or the other favorite one my partner likes to wind me up about is the color of the grass after winter. He's like, that yellow patch of grass over there is dead. Can you go and break it out and put new seeds in? I'm like, so I go off to the other side of the garden, and then he's like, no, that side. I'm like, that's the yellow, and no, that. And, I went through a phase when I was growing up and kind of in my 20s where I was like, I felt like my color blindness was getting worse and worse and worse. As I got older, it was like I went from feeling like it was only one or two colors to wow, this is every color now is getting confusing. But I think that was more my kind of psychological thinking of myself as colorblind, that I had a limitation and that I was, making it worse by thinking it was worse. And as I started to realize that, well, it's not as bad as you think it is. If you know tools, if you've got people to help you, if you use something, because now with technology, there's all these apps and things that can help, and you can even get glasses that can help you see colors the way that a normal vision person would see them. So I very recently started to realize actually I'm quite good with colors. I need a bit of help, but I'm actually better than I give myself credit for.
So when you choose colors for your quilt, do you start off pulling them and then you ask for help? Or do you just have safe colors that work together?
When I first started, I I would kind of totally rely on other people. I'd be like, right, I want to make a quilt and I want orange in it. So what colors will go with orange? Like I need 4 colors for this pattern. Can you pick 4 colors for me? And then I started to try and say, right, well, I want to pick the colors myself and use like the color wheel and use orange as the dominant color and say, right, well, complementary color scheme, orange and blue, that works very nicely. Okay, now I need 2 more colors. What else can go in there? So I try to do more and more of it myself now, but I do rely on people to help me. So this quote behind me, this was a recent pattern test that I did, and it's the first time I've done kind of 12 colors and picked them all myself, and was actually pretty good with the colors apart from the reds. So I needed 3 shades of red, and I had one that worked really nice. It was a Christmas red, but the other 2 they just didn't go, and I sat for about 10 minutes with a Kona shade card and a color wheel and a hue card, and was just like, I couldn't get it, so I had to ask for help. But I was pleased that I got the 11 colors that were there, and that it actually, I think it looks pretty good.
It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
And I did this at show and tell at our guild meeting last night, and we were talking about it, and I was saying, this is the first one that I've done like this, and I just felt kind of relieved, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's beautiful. I love the color choices." And I feel strange when people say to me, "I love your choice of color." I'm like, "Who, me? Really, me?"
Does your color deficiency, does that affect you seeing value?
Yes. And again, kind of when you think about the values and the saturations, I tend to find that the middle of the wedge of colors. So in your color theory video, you talk about the kind of cone of colors. I find the middle of that wedge the muddiest for me, where I can see the least amount of differentiation. So as the value goes down, as the kind of hues move over, I find that they very often, like I'll see 3 colors in the row and they all look the same color. So I tend to find that sticking around the outsides, the shades, the hues along the top, or the greys, the achromatic, sticking on those sides is much safer. But sometimes it depends on the color, and depends what the color's made up of, and it depends on the lighting that I'm looking at it from. Good lighting, sometimes I can see it, but I can't identify it. I can't say that's green or that's red, but I can say those are 2 different colors.
So do you have a favorite color?
Yes, I do. I love orange. I love orange. I used to like blue, like sky blue was my favorite color, and then when it started looking pink to me, I just stopped with that. And then just orange, like it's just such a happy color for me. Like, and I can see it, from like the yellow oranges more to the golden oranges. I can see them all and have no problems with them. And I know that it goes with quite a lot of colors, so it feels like a good safe choice. So like, if you were to go through my stash, you'd probably find more orange than anything else. It just makes me feel happy. Like even my water cup is like, bright orange.
As I sit here and look at everything that's orange around me as well.
Yeah, we're kindred spirits, orange.
I even have my husband making me some 3D printing, and I brought him some orange PLA fiber to do it with. And funny, I like that teal blue on the other side too. So that quilt that you have behind you is just right up my alley.
Thank you. Yeah, I have started to appreciate teals recently. Like they were very confusing to me before, but now I'm kind of like, I quite like teal. I think it's a nice color that I hadn't really been exposed to before.
I think your oranges become more orangey with teal. Like I think it really brings out the best in teal, whatever, that little hint of yellow in it. Now, have you always been a modern quilter, or did you start off traditional?
I've always been modern. I find it very difficult to work with patterned fabrics because of the entire range of colors, and the more colors in the pattern, the harder I find it is to work. So I've always stuck with solid quilts, solid colors, and kind of I do like the traditional patterns and that, but sometimes I just don't know how to color them, if that makes sense. And so I tend to stick with kind of modern quilts that are easier for me to color, but I certainly would like to try a couple as I get kind of better at the colors.
So if we had a relative or a loved one, or we were making a quilt for a color deficient person, what would you advise us doing?
I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think because, color can be such a personal thing. So I would say that I would try, if you can, to find out what kind of color blindness or deficiency the person has, because that will have an effect on what they can see. And then if they have a favorite color, that's even better. If you can work a palette from the favorite color. So like if I was making a quote for a friend and their favorite color was orange, I would look at maybe a complementary color palette, so something straight across from it, or I would look for colors that have high contrast between them. Um, I would be careful of putting red and greens together unless it was certain shade, it's like a really bright green that's like an emerald green and maybe a more magento red, because as a red green colorblind person, I can see the differentiation between those two quite easily. And then I would think about trying to avoid colors that are maybe desaturated, so that it's difficult to differentiate between the two colors. I tend to think, simpler is better, because it can be hard on your eyes as a colorblind person to look at something and you're just like, if I can't see the differentiation between two colors, I just see big blocks of a single color. And so a lot of times I look at a quote and I'm like, oh well, I don't see the secondary pattern. I don't see the, sometimes we have secondary patterns in blocks. Like if the colors are too similar, you can't see them. So sometimes the effect is lost on that. So sometimes making sure that if it's a secondary pattern that is not two colors that a person has a problem with close together. So, like blue and purple right together in a secondary pattern, like that might be lost on me. I might not be able to see the secondary pattern and just see big blobs of blue everywhere. Am I making sense?
It is making sense. Really good advice too. And you just mentioned that looking at a lot of different colors is hard on your brain. Do you actually find it fatiguing? Like if you're on really colorful websites or just in
Yeah.
a room with a lot of colors that you tire easier?
Yeah, I mean, it could just be psychological, but I feel like my eyes physically feel tired when exposed to lots of colors. That, as I say, it could just be a mental thing, but it does feel you feel mentally tired afterwards, because you're trying to make sense of what it is, and you think that you figured it out, and then you're like, oh, no, 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 and then you start to get confused again. And I have a favorite computer game that I've loved for like 20 years. It's really old. It's called Zuma, and they brought out a new version. I was so excited, but I couldn't play it because it wasn't colorblind friendly. So I just died every time within like 30 seconds because I couldn't pick out the colors, and it frustrated me.
That's interesting that you say that because there's a whole guidebook
Mm.
for website design to make sure that it's colorblind friendly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole psychology around it, and I've read a lot of the stuff, and my background is websites and marketing and working with a graphic designer, and I'm sure I used to drive her around the bend with colors when can't see that. What color's that bit there? And yeah, there's a whole theory about like, if you have a website and for example, like data visualization is a common area where like color blindness is hard, because if you're relying on red and green to show something, I might not be able to see it, or I might get it the wrong way around and see the good as the bad and the bad as the good. So yeah, there's a whole study about it, and like what are colorblind safe palettes and what to avoid and how to structure your website. But generally simpler is better. They usually say where possible, or and high contrast, so you can see the difference clearly between two colors that might be a problem.
So you have now moved into pattern design.
Yeah, I do. I love to do pattern design, and trying to do it. It's colors. I think it's confidence with them. You know, like this quote here. This is an amazing quote for the way that the colors work, and when it's opened up, it's really fantastic design that uses colors to make triangles and points and everything. But I find it very difficult to visualize that when I'm trying to design something. And when I sit down and I'm like, right, how using colors to make these kind of effects and things like that. So I think kind of trying my hand at simpler patterns first that are maybe just two-tone patterns, like a dark color with a background, or maybe four-tone patterns, because I can find complementary colors that will work easily together before adventuring out into really complicated stuff. But it's on my ambition list to do it.
I find it best when I'm designing a pattern to start off in black and white.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then add the color second, because then I get the geometry down. and then
Yeah.
I get to play with the color. So I understand you have a palette of fabric here. What do you want to show us?
Yeah, so I brought this palette, and I wanted to explain how I picked these colors and the kind of why the shades are kind of working for me. So let me just, as you can see, it's a really kind of bright, happy, and orange. Yay, orange. In fact, two shades of orange there. So I find these kind of colors really easy, and I know that there has red here, but this particular shade of red, I find it really easy to see this. It's a slightly darker red.
Got a little bit of
called,
orange in it.
yeah.
Team Orange.
Any excuse to get orange in my coat, yeah. But like, I find that if you put that beside other reds, I'll be able to pick that out as red without any problem, or even with greens, I can pick this out as red, and it's just because I find that shade works well. And then, a color that I would always avoid like the plague is this pink, this watermelon pink. And but for me, like, I can see a really nice clear contrast between the red and the pink, whereas other shades of pink that are maybe a little bit darker and closer to the red would be a no-go for me. And I definitely don't see this with grey in it. The two oranges, the kind of the darker orange and the lighter orange, they're easy for me. There's contrast there, so I can see the difference very clearly. Even in dark light, I can see that, which is, I tend to find that as long as I can see it, it works well for me.
Now, I notice you've got labels on all your fabric. Is that important for you to do?
Yes. So I'm quite lucky because one of the shops that I order from in the UK, they always send a little label saying, "Hi, my name's Kona, and I'm Bright Ideas" on it. But this particular one didn't come with it. So a little game that I try and play when this happens is that I sit with the shade card and I try and figure out what color's what. And then as soon as I've got it, or at least I think I've got it, I get a little piece of masking tape or painter's tape and I just write the name on it. And then when I'm getting ready to actually sew with it, what I'll do is on the salvage, however you say that word, I just write it all the way along the length of fabric so that even as I cut the fabric, I still, if I get to like a tiny little bit left, I still know that that's the right idea. Because I've got, I have a stash of fabric, and it was before I thought about doing this, and I have no idea what the color is. And so my poor suffering partner, what color is that? What color is that? Did these colors go together? And he's put up with that for years and I'm very lucky that he's very patient with me. But yeah, so I mean, like, you can see that's a really high contrast tile, and that's great for me. And I think a colorblind person would love those kind of high contrast, even if you were to take that and make it on the blue side of life or the green side of the color spectrum, just because there's such clear steps from one color to the next, it's very easy to kind of see that. And I have no problem picking that up and saying, "Oh, here's the red fabric, here's the yellow fabric." If I have another fabric where I get, this palette more on the blue side,
Mm-hmm.
and these two here, let me just pull them out, sorry. These two here, the gray and the green, like, I was told half an hour ago which one to switch. This is the green, this is the gray. I know now because I've seen the names, but like a half an hour ago, I was like, which one switch? And I did that thing where I try and put them in order of all the colors together. I was just like, my partner's like, no, try again. So, that's just what daily life is like for me. If I don't label it or I don't clearly see it, I'm just like, don't know. Let's just try another color pattern.
You've had a YouTube channel, but you've stepped away from it for a little while. Have you just taken a break?
Yeah, so just work has kind of become really busy. I'm a singing teacher on my other side of life, and we do teacher training for singing teachers. So we run a conference like QuiltCon every year for singing teachers around the world. So it kind of saps all my energy for a couple of months, and just I have no brain space left for anything else. But that's all finished now. So I'm looking forward to getting back to my channel and making videos and really trying to dive into this topic of color deficiency and what it is and how it works, and try and show people some simulations of how it works. There are some amazing tools out there that can show you a color palette, and then they can show you what it looks like for the different types of color blindness. And so you can kind of get a visualization of what it looks like through my eyes. And it's funny because I look at these and they sometimes listen together and I'm like, they all look the same to me.
I
Okay.
definitely would watch any video that you showed me some tips on how to quilt for a color deficient person. And if any of the viewers have any other suggestions on videos, please put them down in the comments below. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
So they'll find me on Instagram at the ColourBlind Quilter, and it's colour with a U because I'm in the UK. Or they can find me on my website, which is thecolorblindquilter.com, and on YouTube as well, ColourBlind Quilter. All under those titles with a U.
And there's now a website called Coolers, and that helps you with choosing palettes.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the websites that I was just talking about. It shows you all the color palettes, but on the menu where you can filter things, there's a drop down and it lists all the different types of color blindness, and it will show you what they look like to a colorblind person. So if you go on the website later and have a look and pick Protanomaly as a colorblind type, you'll be able to see how I see all those color palettes.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
I hope you've enjoyed my interview with the ColourBlind Quilter. He has generously prepared a free handout on colorblind friendly color palettes. It's a fantastic reference that you can download from his website, thecolorblindquilter.com. He also has a YouTube channel with tips and pointers, so check that out too. All his contact info, links to his channel and his website will also be in the notes below. Next up on Karen's Quilt Circle is Zakia Pierce of Cozy Quilts for Scholars. She is making quilts for young adults heading off to college and need that extra support that a quilt can provide. You don't want to miss it, so be sure to subscribe.
I've had so many amazing guests on Karen's Quilt Circle. You don't want to miss any of them, so make sure you subscribe and check out the playlist.
Last week, I uploaded the 10th installment of my vlog on the story of my 4th of July quilt. It's kind of epic and a lot of fun, so please check it out. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell beside the subscribe button so that YouTube will notify you when I make new videos. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Just Get It Done Quilts, and of course my website, justgetitdonequilts.com. So take care, and I'll see you next time.